What is happening, you beautiful bastards?
God damn it, everybody! Listen to my show!
I'm going to crash this plane. Yeah, I'm ready to stop. You merely adapted to the darkness. I was born in it.
Welcome back, you beautiful bastards, to another episode. This week we have a great guest. Our guest is Scott from the 10 Code Mindset YouTube channel. Scott's a great guest. He's a great guy. You should be able to tell that we're a little bit more relaxed this week than last week.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, for sure. However, that being said, I did want to point out that before going into this conversation with Scott, which you'll find out, Scott is in law enforcement. My overall outlook on police was not positive. Having been able to talk to someone who is what I would classify one of the good cops, I think that kind of changed my outlook a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now in the U.S., currently, right now in the U.S., currently, cops are under fire, and justifiably so. I don't think I think they should be under fire. I think we should always be pressing them to be the best they can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
And I think it's good that you'll also find out our guest Scott feels the same way.
He does, and I'm going to press him a little bit, which is funny because Jerry's more the anti-cop person than me, but whatever.
Role reversal.
So hopefully you guys enjoy the show.
Let's get to it.
This week's guest is Scott Medlin. Is that how I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, Medlin.
Scott, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, everybody. Grizz, Jerry, I'm Scott Medlin. I've worked in law enforcement for 13 years. However, I must say I'm a part-time cop now, but I'm an active advocate for wellness for police, and that's what I do mostly now is teach and speak and run a YouTube channel where I provide material for officers for career survival and mental wellness and physical wellness and stuff like that.
Now, I've been checking out your YouTube channel and a lot of it, and one of the things I keep seeing on there that I know I've talked with several people about is people nowadays wanting to join the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think a lot of people have even more questions than they ever had before about that. Would you still recommend it to people if their heart's in the right place?
It's great that you've asked that, Grizz, because I think next week I'm going to release a video where I actually interview someone who is all about determining whether or not a job is right for you. But my personal opinion, law enforcement is kind of turning into real estate where it's about location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
There are a lot of police officers leaving Seattle, New York City,
Chicago,
other major cities because of just the environment. I guess they feel like they're working with their hands tied behind their back. But yet you have other cities, towns, sheriff's offices where the deputies, the officers, they're still loving it where they are. It just really depends. I would encourage anyone thinking about getting into it, first understand who you are as a person. Like you have to have the right intention on being of sound mind, sound body to be of service. I mean, seriously, yes, you can want to go after bad guys who commit crimes, but policing is more than just that. And then, it really is. And some of the most rewarding stories and incidents in my life have been when I wasn't out there catching criminals, and I was just trying to ask, like when I worked in the schools, I would just ask a student who was having a bad day, "Hey, do you want to talk about how your day's going? How can we make it better?" That's making a difference still. That had nothing to do with crime.
And that's a huge part of it.
Oh yeah, it definitely is part of it. But also I would tell anyone wanting to get into it, what are your reasons? Because if your reasons are not very strong enough, like if you just need a job, law enforcement's not for you. You're going to get a rude awakening very fast. So understand who you are, what your reasons are, really be concrete with those, and then understand the location of where you want to work and know about it as much as possible. Interview other officers who work there, and then formulate your opinion from there as to whether or not you get into it.
So what was it that drove you to get into the police force? Why'd you choose that route?
that thought was planted in my mind when I was a young kid, actually. I was in my mom's car waiting for her to take my brothers and I somewhere. And I saw a guy up the street walking back and forth between houses or going door to door. But I knew he didn't live in the neighborhood because the neighborhood was small. Everyone knew each other. I knew he didn't live in the neighborhood. But when he would go up to a door, he would stand right at the door while he would knock. And then he wouldn't back away like most people would. But then he started looking in the windows. I was like, no, something's not right here. And I was a little kid, so I got scared because he was getting closer to our house. And I pointed him out to my mom. She said, what's he doing here? And then she called the police. And I just remember thinking, I want the police to be here so they can protect me. So that kind of got the thought planted. And then my mom was nice enough to let me watch that TV show Cops while I was growing up. And I think we need cops back on the TV. That's my opinion. But I enjoyed watching it, enjoyed what they did. And I never wanted to have a desk job while growing up. Everything about working at a desk totally disgusted me. And I am a people person. I love dealing with all kinds of people, and whether it's good or bad. So that's why I chose the police route.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, Andy and I are also people.
We also, well, I can't speak for Jerry, but I also said that I never want to touch a desk job, and now that's my job.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same boat. So now I actually turned down an offer to be on the police force. I live in Connecticut, and back when my uncle was still married to my aunt, my uncle was a state cop, and he recommended that I join. And I thought about it, and I was like, I break a lot of little laws, and I'm comfortable doing that. I don't feel like I could be a cop and still do that. I'd feel like a hypocrite. So I turned it down. I don't think policing was for me, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, Grizz, did you ever think about being a cop yourself?
Very briefly.
Because you were a Marine, so that's kind of a lot of those guys go into that.
Yeah, Scott, like yourself, I'm a former. And
outstanding, Semper Fi.
Yet. And a lot of it, like a lot of guys get out and they go into the police force. And for me, it wasn't me. I was a wrench turner. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I enjoyed doing. And so I never really crossed my mind, but I know people who do. And I mean, I've talked some people out of becoming a cop for other reasons. Like they just didn't have that moral, fiber in them, to me. And they were getting into it for the wrong reasons, in my mind. But I mean, nowadays, I think a lot of, we all know we've had issues right now with cops in the news and things like that.
Right.
And people are always looking at the departments and they're pointing at the departments. And really, truth be told, and I don't even know if you can comment on this, to me, it's the union. Because I think there are good cops and bad cops everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
I like to believe there are more good cops than bad cops. But I think your good cops' hands are tied by the union. If anyone's ever worked with a union before, it doesn't help things.
Not anymore, anyway.
Yeah, it might have back in the day. But I would believe the good cops would be going and reporting people to whoever they need to report them to. But a lot of times your hands are tied by the union, and the union decides what happens there instead of the people who should be deciding what happens there.
I got you. I've never worked with a union. I really don't know that much about it. Where I am, we do not have unions.
Really?
No unions for police. What you can have is just associations that will appoint lawyers for you if you get in an officer involved shooting or fight for your benefits. If you get hurt on the job, stuff like that. But don't know enough about a union to actually comment on it. But from where I've worked, accountability is held to a very high standard. And if you screw up, like if you are negligent, if you abuse your power, you're held accountable for it.
And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of the unions, I believe, are in the cities.
Right.
I don't know. Do you work in a city area, or are you in the
I worked in the city department for 12 years, and then currently I'm just part-time at a university right now, which just got a heck of a lot easier because all the students went home. So I got, I'm working tomorrow night. I'm just going to be looking at a bunch of buildings.
Well, that's good for you, man.
Well, it was also to make that leap of faith to speak and teach to other officers, which I'm doing now for mental and physical well-being, considering actually more officers are committing suicide than are actually being killed in the line of duty, which is pretty alarming.
Well, that's a lot of things That's one thing that I think people don't think about when it comes to first responders, whether that be paramedics, EMS, or police officers.
Right.
They're treated like shit. And on top of that, they see horrific things on almost a daily, nightly timeline, and they're not allowed to deal with it.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, I would hope that within your department, you guys help each other. I've never been in a police department, so I don't know how that works. But I know in other places, a lot of times it's just not talked about. So it's cool that you have it on your YouTube channel, this community that kind of enforces talking about it and helping each other.
Oh, we're all human, and as humans, we're going to have human reactions. Police have the same mind that everybody else has, the same human brain.
Man,
nobody's exempt. And we see things that the brain is not innately wired to see. Bottom line, we don't wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to see someone dying today. I can't wait to see a child who's been a victim of a horrific crime. That doesn't happen. What you wake up and your brain thinks about is, where's the food? Where's the water? Where can we seek pleasure? And how can we survive? That's it. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be some adverse reactions.
So did your experiences in your 12 years on the force kind of shape your decision that you wanted to go into this speaking and support role and start your YouTube channel?
Yes, and it was because a lot of it's because of mistakes I made. Like, I battled depression, I've battled PTSD, and I've battled an addiction. I was like, you know what? As much as I've been in the shrink's office, I could save some people some money. They won't have to pay. I can just teach them all that I've learned.
Yeah.
So, but yes, that based on my experiences and my 12 years, that's what led me to dive into it.
How long have you been doing your channel?
Oh, the channel hadn't even been up a year. It started maybe August, September.
Yeah. Did you know anything about the video aspect of it when you started?
A little bit. I had another YouTube channel on affiliate marketing, but I really wasn't having a lot of fun with it. It wasn't my passion. I mean, yes, I was making some passive income, but this policing thing obviously is what I know, what I enjoy, and I'm passionate about it. So that's what. And the professionals that I know, the successful people that I know on YouTube, they all said, if you have a cell phone and you can speak to your cell phone, get a YouTube channel started. And to this day, my videos are all with my iPhone.
I know plenty of people on YouTube who that's all they use is they just use their phone.
Exactly.
Even if they've made it big time, it's like, wait a minute, what? You're still recording with your phone? Or some dude with like 1.2 million subscribers and he's still using his damn phone.
Yeah, you're right. But you're also right. I mean, gosh, I use an iPhone 11 Pro, and I mean, wow, yes, the video quality is pretty good.
Have you had a lot of feedback on the channel from, I guess your target audience is probably police officers, right?
Police are those wanting to get into it. Those who are wanting to get into it or interested in getting into it, they've been my most active in the comments section, to which I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any feedback based on my experience. But yes, there are a few cops who are very active in the comment section who I've gotten to know, and I'm helping them out and helping them cope. And some of them vent from time to time about what's going on. And, I'll respond back to any question or comment that's, well, one, appropriate, two, worth my time. Because let's face it, on the internet, I do get some hate. But at the same time, I keep making videos hoping that those who are unfavorable to police, who do not like police, maybe will watch the video and maybe either learn something that they didn't know before. And maybe I can, I'm not trying to change minds out there, but I can enlighten you as to things you won't be you will not be informed about if you just watch mainstream or social media.
Yeah, unfortunately, everything you see in the news is going to be negative, especially right now, because that's what's hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I gotta imagine we're at a point where some things are gonna have to change in police forces. I don't agree with the whole defunding police. I think that's not the way to go.
Right.
But rethinking how we do things, I think that's got to be a thing. But I don't understand. One of the biggest things, whether you believe in their thoughts, what they're thinking or whatever when they're doing, the problem is a lot of guys get caught up in the moment, right?
Yes.
You'd think nowadays with your body cams and everything like that, it would always be a second thought in your mind. Like, I have to, and it should be anyways, right? You should be 100% perfect on your game. Now, again, like we already said, we're human.
Yep.
Right? What advice do you give to guys who are either starting out new in the police force or want to get in the police force when it comes to things like just dealing with all that? Like, to me, you should always be aware that you have your body cam on and that you should be perfect, whether it's on or not.
Yes, it's just that mindset. You don't want it to have to change who you are when the camera comes on.
Exactly.
When we got body cameras back in 2016, I was still working as a canine officer, and we put the camera on. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I would tap it, press the button twice and it would come on. And I didn't have to think, oh man, I'm on camera. I need to act different now.
Yeah, it should be that way.
Because I was always acting good in the first place. Mistakes are going to happen. Like I have mistaken someone's identity for someone else before. I have been dispatched to a call where a deputy said, hey, that person has a warrant. I didn't validate it. We ended up arresting her but releasing her. So it's like mistakes happen. But I, as an officer, have always held myself to a high standard because I know that I represent myself, the department, any officer to my left and right. But body cameras really weren't that stressful because I didn't have to change who I was, like I said. But to anyone getting into it, and especially newer officers, one, if you're confident in who you are, then believe me, hearing people yell at you, hearing people say very hateful things about you, it's not like you're numb to it. It can affect you, but it should only be short-lived in the sense that if you know who you are and you're courageous and confident in yourself, then you know who you are. And if someone's opinion of you
shouldn't matter,
it shouldn't matter at all. And then I'm going to say this right now. Police are not, in my opinion, for what I've seen, police need a heck of a lot more training in hand-to-hand control of other people, defense tactics. I trained jiu-jitsu. I've trained Krav Maga. I've trained MMA. I'm not saying I'm Bruce Lee by any means, but anytime I've had to go hands-on with someone after trying to avoid it and trying to talk, avoid it by all means, I can't stand fighting because it can get so dangerous so quick. But I've always maintained control of someone when it was necessary. Mm-hmm. But I've seen officers who, I've literally had to pull someone away from the officer so I could gain control of them without people getting hurt.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, police departments are, I don't know about, I can't say across the board, but there are some departments that I know of that are looking more into this. And one in particular, they actually are acting on it, where they have an officer who is very good in this stuff and is teaching officers regularly how to do the self-defense and the hands-on tactics. That's very important. And then another thing I would recommend is officers can't get into a negative mindset where they grow antisocial or asocial. Asocial tendencies can also be a sign of depression. Antisocial, you're just building up a bad heart where you really need to get back out in the public and understand not everyone's bad. Now, I fell into this rut around 2011, 2012.
That's a hard thing to do.
It really is, because there was a span for about 6 months where I was really running into a lot of habitual criminals. And I was just beginning to think that was the way the country was going. And my supervisor patted me on the shoulder. He said, you need to take a few days off. All right. Just take a few days off from this, go out and enjoy yourself. And I did. I went out with friends who were not in policing, and the perspective changed. So I would recommend officers.
Supervisor.
Yeah, no, he did the right thing. That was leadership. That was definitely leadership, and not.
But that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to do because if you're working in inner city, and we've talked about this before, how do you not become numb to it? You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna, and it's not just in inner city, but in an inner city, you kind of see the same demographic. You're seeing the same kind of crimes and over and over and over again. And it's got to beat down on you. You got to become numb to it. And I think that's one of our biggest problems, but I don't know how to fix that other than like in your situation, like, hey, take a few days off. But if you've been doing it for 20 years or 15 years, like, that's beaten into you for 15 years. We're humans. You're going to keep going that way.
Yeah. And then I got to think too, that because that's going to cause you to develop PTSD, you're going to be at a higher risk of running into issues at work, because if you do have a serious issue with PTSD that's not recognized, you can trigger what would amounts to an emotional event that's really kind of like an uncontrolled action. You can end up in a bad situation because of that.
Yep, absolutely. That's why my common phrase that I say in my videos when I'm speaking is, we have to do well for ourselves so that we can do that much better for the communities we swore to protect. Bottom line. And it's just all about daily habits. It's not like you have to change overnight. You just have to become a little bit better each and every day and stick to healthy stuff outside of the job and for yourself, so that you can become stronger internally, so that you can do well externally on the job with dealing with people.
It comes down to a discipline, really.
Is that something that you cover in the police health books that you wrote?
Absolutely, 100%. In my first book, Mental Health Fight of the Heroes in Blue, I talk about how we're not machines. We're not these stoic warriors who fear no evil and know no pain. We're people. And then I break it down into how the body actually reacts to stress, and how all these chemical reactions within the body and then the mental exposure that we have to certain things actually can cause these signs and symptoms that we actually have to be aware about. And then I dive into how can we combat that so that it doesn't get in the way of us. Well, we don't become a threat to ourselves, but also, we don't become a loose cannon out there in the public. The public demands and deserves police officers to be at their best. Bottom line.
On that line of stress, the one thing that got me, being a former Marine, when they were taught, I don't know the police officer's name who mistaked her service weapon for a taser. Well, people were like, how do you do that? There's a difference in weight, there's a difference in look and everything like that. It's like, you've never been in that stressful of a situation. There's a thing, if you ever talk to anyone who's been in stressful situations when it comes to weapons and stuff, a lot of them trade out their triggers for giant flat triggers because you can't feel it. You can't feel the weight of your weapon. You can't feel what it feels like. Your fine motor skills are gone. It comes down to gross. And I'm not excusing what she did. She made a mistake, and guess what? We live in the real world. She still has to deal with that. But a lot of people don't realize that in those stressful situations, as a human, your body, what you feel normally ain't there. You know what I mean? You are jacked on adrenaline, and everything changes.
You are. And your fine motor skills, just like you said, they're the first thing to go. And that in moments of crisis, we don't ever rise to our expectations. We sink to our level of training. And I don't know what kind of training I didn't make that phrase up, by the way. I was totally quoting that, but it's true. And when I heard it in Krav Maga lessons, it resonated, and I realized I can never stop training. Even though I'm at a campus where crime activity is not very high, I still find myself, watching YouTube videos about dangerous calls just to keep that mentality. I don't know what her career was like. I don't know what she had been assigned to leading up to that traffic stop. If she had not had much exposure on the street leading up to that, it is a muscle. You can lose it. Like you can get weaker in your dealing with people. We can speculate all day why she did what she did. Obviously she did it. It was a fatal mistake. It was very tragic. It should never have happened. But yes, it is one of those. It is one of those things where you can become so zoned in that you can't see to your left and right. You can't hear anything. Well, you remember in the Marines, they use that term, the fog of war. I mean, it doesn't have to be active combat in a combat zone. It can be a stressful situation like that.
I would say it literally could be any stressful situation.
Exactly.
Fortunate enough, most people don't enter that situation, which is good for them.
Right.
But you have to, and again, I'm not justifying what happened. I think if you fuck up and you drive down the road and you hit someone and you kill them, guess what? You still have to pay the repercussions.
Yep.
But I could still understand how it went down. So I understand what happened there. It's a shitty situation.
It is.
For everyone involved. But it brings up in my mind, right now, to my knowledge, there's not a standard training for all police officers, right? Like, depending on what station you're at, depends on your level of training.
Yeah. I think it's also state by state. Each state has their different in-service requirements. and I think it can depend on state as well.
I would imagine so.
Yes.
But to me, I would think we'd want to create something where, I understand there's a different state to state and budget and all that, but you'd think that we'd want to create something that becomes more mainstreamed, that focuses on training police officers to be the best they can be, to do what the public requires of them, right? One thing that I've seen, and I don't know if it becomes down to training with firearms or if it's just the fact that it's strapped to you guys like 24/7. When I go to the range as often as I can. I would love to go a lot more, but some of the most what's the word I'm looking for? Like negligent discharges or just complete safety accidents or incidents that I've seen, most of them come from cops. And I'm like, you got to be better than that. You got to be trained more. And the problem is a lot of the small police stations, at least by me, they're not doing the training that they need to be, or at least not the level they should be. So to me, I think we have to get to a point where there's either an SOP for training across the board, countrywide, because I think we should be able to do that. I know the cops are run statewide, but I don't see why we can't have a federally guidelined training for everyone. I think, how could that not be good?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point so far as everyone should meet a certain standard, but it's kind of like when you and I went through a boot camp. They said you're a Marine, but you're basic. You've got the foundation. You got to build yourself up, and obviously through training you will. It's the same thing in policing. You go through your mandated training, but then it's up to any officer when they come home at night to maybe take that extra time to practice drawing their weapon, to practice giving those commands, to practice just dry firing before they put it up on the shelf for the night and then pick it back up, the next day. All these little things that you have to make the extra effort to do to become that much better, because the police department never paid for me to go to BJJ or Krav Maga classes. I did all that out of my own pocket, all that out of my own time, only because I knew, well, one, I didn't want to get my ass handed to me. Two, I just wanted to be able to to be safe and aware while dealing with that kind of stuff. But the standards are going to be the standards, but I really do believe it's up to the individual, because they can make standards across the board. Unless someone practices, unless someone runs scenarios through their mind and give that mental exposure, it's really still going to boil down to the individual officer.
Oh, and no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
We can do all the training in the world. It still comes down to who it is.
Yep.
But I just think, if you make it a thing where we afford officers, whatever it is, an hour a day, several hours a week, a day a week, whatever it is, to where every week you're basing training to help in those situations. I don't see how that could do anything. You know what I mean? It's going to help.
It will. And my last year on patrol, I had a supervisor who was on the SWAT team, and he would do makeshift training for us. We would do room clearing at 2 or 3 in the morning when there was nothing going on. And we would practice this stuff. And then one day at the end of day shift, we actually did a active attacker in a corporate building scenario. And he said, look, I know you guys want to go home, but this is when you have to push yourself through, when you're tired, when you don't feel like, this is it. And we did it. And we, for the most part, we did a good job. But it's all about the line sergeants also helping to keep training during that downtime. I mean, it's no secret that there's bad cops, and there's no secret that obviously there are incidents that are happening that are absolutely fatal and could have been avoided. So it's up to the individual officer and up to the small group. But also, unfortunately, a lot of the training comes down to money. It's just budget.
Oh, I know.
And it gets kind of annoying. But at the same time, if you don't have any money, then you can't do it. Like, especially with ammo right now. I mean, my gosh, you said you went to the range. Like,
I haven't gone to the range in the last year and a half. Man,
I'm telling you, it's like I went shooting the other day, and it was like, dang, this is expensive.
Yeah. I said, hell no. I looked at ammo prices throughout this entire thing. I said, nope, ain't happening.
Yeah,
nope.
It's bad. So unfortunately, there's a lot going against us. But there's, we've done some sim round training. I remember the department where I used to work. They did sim round training versus maybe a range day. So, but we could always seek to improve. We're never as humans going to be perfect. So there's always that need to strive to be just that much better.
Now, enough of me bashing on you guys.
No, I didn't take it as bashing at all. No, I have had many discussions with people who downright did not like police. Period. Heck, one time I made a stop on a vehicle, and there were two people in the car. The passenger started filming me immediately, and I was like, I mean, it didn't bother me because I'm not doing anything wrong. And at the end of the stop, I can't remember what I stopped this guy for, but anyway. I asked the woman that was filming me, I said, okay, if you could just tell me, am I going to be on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? And she started laughing. She said, you know what? She said, you were actually a pretty cool cop. I'm not going to put you on anything. And then we kind of had a conversation just briefly because we were in the, we were blocking traffic a little bit, so we couldn't just talk. But I mean, stuff like that. In high schools, I've had conversations with students who absolutely hated police. One of the most rewarding moments in my career was when I became pretty much good friends with a student who had a family member who died in police custody. Unfortunately, it was ruled an overdose, and the reaction of the body had from the taser. But this student hated police, and all it took was a basketball game between him, me, and a few others, and we were good, and we worked on our relationship. It's stuff like that. It's just individual interactions. That young man changed my life.
In that scenario, I would hope that she'd put it on everything because I understand the negativity is always going to get the views and everything like that. But I would hope. I know I come from a different point of view, but when I see those videos of cops doing good things, like whatever their rank is, going out and talking to people and trying to spread positivity, I love those. I'm all about those because they're out there. There's good cops out there. You can come across them.
Yep.
A lot of people have this mentality that no matter what, right off the bat, they're already dealing with a shithead. It's like, you don't even, like we told you before the show, we had a conversation with someone last week. As soon as we brought up the word cop, it was already negative. It's like, you don't know the people. How do you know this is going to be bad? Now, there's this human nature to, as soon as we see someone who's enforcing things like laws, we just automatically think negativity. Right. But if you can get more people out there spreading the positive, you're creating a better community. So you played a basketball game, and we on the show are all about having the conversations, whether good, bad, or otherwise.
Yep. Because
that's going to help people. It helps people understand. Like, you can have hate towards a cop as soon as he pulled you over or whatever it is. But if you have a conversation with the man or woman, you're probably not going to feel the same way when you're done, unless, the situation's really bad.
Yeah, right. Right. Most of the time they're not. And fortunately, most cops are very respectful, and they use that one very powerful word, empathy. And one of the best things we're taught is someone's yelling at you. They're not yelling at you. They're yelling at the uniform you wear.
Yep.
And if you can have that conversation, then have that conversation. And for all things good, I pray that the art of having conversations does not completely die in this country. I mean, it seems like it kind of is, but conversations are very crucial.
If you look at mainstream, I think it is, but I think most people are looking for the conversations out there. I mean, that's why podcasts are blowing up right now, right? Podcasts
very true.
And YouTube and live streams and things like that is because people want to have the conversation, but they can't, or they don't know who to have it with. You know what I mean? Hopefully people aren't losing that art.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Well, podcasts they're going to be the big medium in the future anyway, because they'll get to hear the entire story instead of the skewed 30-second news clip that we get in mainstream media and social media now.
Right. No, I understand. And don't get me wrong. If a cop screws up, I will not defend them. If a story needs attention, then it needs attention. But conversations and hearing the perspective of people who are in it, and law enforcement is definitely one of those jobs where if you're not in it, it's hard to understand the whole picture. I mean, seriously, I always encourage people, look, and now this has been tough with COVID, but maybe now that the rules might be kind of dropping a little bit, go on a ride along. Seriously, go on a ride along on a Friday or Saturday night when the moon is full, and oh my gosh, perspectives are changed instantly. Or if your department does, if the department where you live does like that. I know there's a video on YouTube. If you look up activist goes through police scenarios, his mind was totally changed. Mm-hmm. And he, in one of the situations, he shot an unarmed person, and they talked to him afterward, and his perspective was changed tremendously. But also, police departments, if they don't do ride-alongs, they'll do or in combination with ride-alongs, they'll do police citizens academies where you can go in and actually ask questions to the police officers, or the police officers will show you around the department that your tax money's funding, and will show you what they do, what this equipment's for, what their mission is, what, how they're accomplishing it, stuff like that. And then it just kind of breaks down how do I say it? Brings a human side to it.
Yeah, it's really good to humanize it right now, because we've actually had other episodes where we brought somebody on who was a focus of a lot of political conversations, because everything you see in the news is about a group, and it's not really focusing on the people, and it really dehumanizes people. And this is in all kinds of topics. So right now in the news, police are essentially they're not connecting with people on a human level because they're a talking point right now. They're not people.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to show it.
Yeah. Well, they are people, but with respect to what people are seeing, it's not humanizing the situation. They don't understand, which is, as you said, an activist went through that program and realized what it was that a police officer is dealing with in an escalated situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty amazing to watch how his perspective totally changed. And I've had people do ride-alongs with me before where they were just kind of interested.
Yeah. But
I'd turn on the blue lights, stop a car, and you just see their eyes open up really wide, because they don't know who's in the car. And I'm like, well, neither do I.
I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, like, people got to understand the context of the moments, right? You see all this stuff on social media and whatnot where they take snippets and you're not seeing the full context of what's going on.
Right.
And I find that I have the discipline to be like, I'm not going to sit here and judge this moment because I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm not there. Yeah. I don't know what they're going through. They could have had a shitty day for all I know. The other side could have had a shitty day.
Right. I'll never forget when Denzel Washington pointed out how we're very quick to get information out there, and yet sometimes the information will not necessarily be right. But it was just, but Denzel brought out how it's just who can get it out there the fastest. And then all of a sudden, facts that were totally not talked about or ignored, they'll come out later, but that's after all the emotional damage is already done.
Yeah, I remember the marathon bombing. I was not far from it. I was maybe 10, 15 minutes from it. And I remember all the bullshit that was floating out there, right? Because everyone had to get their shit out there as quickly as possible. They didn't give a fuck if it was factual or not. Mm-hmm. And if you're sitting with outside eyes, you're looking at it, you're like, how as media, how can you sleep at night being like, yeah, I just threw this out there. It fucked up people, or it did things, or made people react in other ways, or in negative ways. But they'll just put whatever out there just to get the views. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting. I do know of a story of a news anchor who I know who refused to cover a story a certain way because it was totally like unethical. But yet that anchor was being told to do it. That's not good.
No, the problem is there's no consequence for the network when they put out bad information. They hide behind the Constitution, really, and that right now is allowing them to pretty much say whatever they want and just say, if it's wrong, we'll correct it later. But as you just said, the damage is already done at that point.
And the editorials will come out like 6 months later. No one's seeing those.
Yeah, nobody reads.
No one's going to look at this shit when everything's done.
Right. Plus, with the adult attention span getting down to about 8 seconds now, who the heck reads editorials?
Yeah, no shit. Headlines and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I just want to back this conversation up a little bit, because one of the things that you're big on is you focus on PTSD and helping first responders handle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you yourself, you're a victim of that as well, right?
Yes, I got diagnosed with it based on an incident that I had in Iraq where I was almost killed with close mortar fire.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, heck, I just wrapped up a 12-week treatment for it with the VA. But there's been some things in policing as well. Like personally, what has bothered me the most, and still to this day, if I find myself thinking about it first person, I have to bring myself out of the thought and not reliving it, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a thought and reality.
Yeah.
But people who have killed themselves, like every cop is bothered by certain things. Like some can see bloody, gory crime scenes, and it doesn't really bother them. But then they'll lose their mind if they hear about a kid being a victim of a crime. And I'm not saying that you aren't bothered to some extent, but it's just kind of weird. Everyone's different. Yeah. My what has hurt me the most is when I saw people who had taken their own life from suicide, and that was actually in 2011. I saw someone who had hung themselves, like a day after that person had done it. That bothered me tremendously. And I had anxiety, bad sleeping. So yes, I've had my fair share of the post-traumatic stress injury disorder, whatever you want to call it. And yes, I still have to manage it to this day.
What's the VA doing for treatment for PTSD nowadays?
They offered me either just traditional psychology appointments or the cognitive processing therapy, which is what I went through, the cognitive processing therapy, which I handled stuck points like I survived, they didn't, people can't be trusted. It's all these negative thoughts that can get in the way of your mindset breaking into a positive, more positive light.
Now, do you find that the tools, because when we think PTSD, a lot of people just go straight military, right?
Oh yeah.
And the tools, not all of them, but the tools are there for the most part for veterans and military alike. But do you find it's there for first responders?
More than what it was, but for a very long time, no. And unfortunately, more work definitely has to be done.
Oh yeah.
The statistics show it. I mean, I think this year in and of itself, and I'm not saying it's all because of PTSD, but we clearly have an issue where at least 57 police officers have killed themselves so far in 2021.
In 2021, damn.
Yep.
And I mean, that I imagine recent events don't help that. But
well, correct. It's obviously a lot. There could be different topics, but not addressing or coping with the trauma that police officers face can definitely lead to a bad road.
Now, hopefully, departments are creating an atmosphere where you can start talking about this stuff.
It is coming more to light. The department that I work for, we're very small, but last week the chief had an all-staff meeting, and she said, "Hey, Scott, can you do 10 to 12 minutes of how to cope, inspiration, and safety?" So yeah, I did it. And it's all right to talk about it now. Where I used to work, they brought back their chaplain program, and the chaplain helped me. So I mean, it's opening up more for people to talk about it. There's peer support teams all across the country now, where an officer might not feel comfortable talking to someone outside of law enforcement because they don't have the full understanding. So they need to talk to fellow cops. Mm-hmm. So there's peer support teams like Warriors Rest Foundation. They're great. There's more resources than what there used to be.
So Andy and I actually, we both believe in this pretty heavily, especially when it comes to psychological issues. That obviously going to a psychologist or a therapist is a big part of that, but you also have to be willing to put in the work yourself.
Yes. One of the best things a psychologist ever told me was, "Scott, I've been seeing you for a while now. I can only do so much for you. You are going to have to make the effort, and you ultimately will change yourself and your perspective." That's the best thing he ever told me. I mean, seriously. So you're right.
So what kind of things have you done yourself outside of the therapist's office that you can kind of point to and say to somebody else, "This is what's helped me. This is something that, you might want to try this on your own"?
It's yoga. I for the longest time, I was like, I'm a Marine. I'm an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. I'm a tough police officer. I'm Krav Maga, jiu-jitsu, man, yoga. Get rid of that sissy stuff, whatever. But I always tell officers, if you feel like you're going to be embarrassed when someone finds out that you do that stuff, then you don't have to tell anyone that you do it. But I have found that yoga not only builds your core up, it's a good workout physically, but it actually is a very useful method to relaxing the body. And when the body's relaxed, the mind can become relaxed. And when the mind's more relaxed, the body can relax that much more, all from stretching out, releasing the stress pockets wherever they are within your body. And when you're more stretched out, when you're more stronger, you feel younger. And when you feel younger, you can feel better. I mean, it all works together. So I would say yoga has definitely played a huge part in my life. And I mean, heck, I did it this morning. And the coach who I follow online, Sean V, I mean, he on YouTube, so for free. I mean, my gosh, he's tough. I mean, but yet at the same time, I feel a lot better. So yoga, I'm a big supporter of yoga.
Andy, I think you should try yoga.
Give it a try.
Trust me, I got to get back to running.
I was actually I talk to Andy off the air all the time because he can get a little heated for seemingly no reason, like when someone just wants to sell him products.
Right.
I don't think I get heated at all.
You're passionate.
Dude, I love life. I am happy.
No, listen, this I think he wanted to bring this up anyway, but he had a salesman come to his house and he starts bitching to me about it. He's like, this fucking guy trying to sell me shit, and he tried to. I told him no, and he was trying to do it anyway. And I was like, Andy, that's his job.
Yeah.
He's trying to make a living. He's like, I don't care. He can go fuck himself.
I did not say that.
Yoga.
I may or may not have heard that from people as a police officer.
Yeah, but that's a different scenario. You know I mean?
But
cop ain't trying to sell me something.
There's some other things I do, like I will write down in the morning, and sometimes I forget in the evenings, but in the morning especially, I'll write down at least 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And thus it will push your mind to be more grateful for what you have, and you will focus less on what you don't have or the hardships that you're going through, and you will focus on the blessings that you do have. I personally think, I mean, I know this country is going through a very challenging time, and I pray for it every day, but we still have a lot to be grateful for living here in America. So if someone's like, well, my life sucks right now, well, you could be locked up in a jail just because of your Christian faith, or you could be starving in a country where they really can't feed the people and the people don't have any food. I mean, we still have a lot to be thankful for. So even if you're having a horrendous day, there's something you can write down on a piece of paper that you can be grateful for, and it really will shift the mindset. And that's what kind of helped bring me out of depression after 30 days was writing stuff that I was grateful for.
We've had this conversation many times on this show now.
It's a recurring theme now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But we have a lot of those, Jerry.
Yes,
you get stuck in this negative wormhole.
Yes.
All your thoughts become negative.
Yep.
And it's really, really hard to get out of. But if you're stuck in this positive wormhole, all your thoughts are positive. Even when a negative one comes at you, you usually turn it around into something positive.
Yep. Or you can just dismiss it as no value to you, and then get back to thinking about how you're going to, be of value to others and yourself.
It's a hard thing to learn how to do.
Yeah.
But once you learn it, man, everything's gravy after that.
It really can change your life. And
absolutely.
I mean, it did with me for sure. And unfortunately, because police officers deal with exposure to the dark corners of society, and they deal with people when they're at their worst. And then a lot of times officers will get together, they pull up side by side, and they just end up, complaining about the decisions from the administration. I mean, look, I'm speaking from experience here. You can get into that negative mindset. I mean, I get it, but
I think everyone's had it. It's a question of how bad they had it. You know what I mean? There ain't a person in this world who hasn't had a negative point in their life.
Yeah, of course.
But you got to come out on the flip side.
We definitely touched on it. I mean, we're fed negativity stuff. I mean, I think it's in America, 95% of the news you hear will be negative.
Yeah, well, that's what sells. Yeah. We know that now.
Yep, you're right.
To be a little on the happier side, what was it that you liked about being a cop when you were doing that full time?
Well, one, no day was the same. Yeah. Like, there's no boring routine. Now, there are times where it is boring. Like, sitting at a closed intersection for hours while they, clear a traffic crash half a mile down the road. That would get boring, stuff like that. But every day was different. I like being out and about. When I worked in a patrol district, I joked around that I had a desk that was 5 square miles, or an office space that was 5 square miles. Could just drive around, do it. I mean, self-initiated activity. If I wanted to go up to the shopping centers and prevent crime or respond to crime up there, I could do it. If I wanted to go into the neighborhoods and look for people who were wanted on warrants, then I would go do it. I mean, just the kind of the individual freedom of it. And then working with a team, I was so blessed for so many years to work with such great officers. And we were just a big family going into work, keeping each other safe, but yet also doing great things. And working with them, I mean, that was great. And it helped because I missed the camaraderie that I made when I was in the Marines. And then, it trickled into the police work. So those were the things that I enjoyed the most. So far as like actual specific activity, particularly when I was on K-9, really enjoyed going after wanted criminals who were on the run. I always love catching a thief. I can't stand a thief. You stealing at Walmart? Hey, I'm sorry, but the prices are going to go up because you're stealing, and inflation. But that's another story. Catching thieves, and then I really, 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 I didn't take it personal, but I guess I did take it personal, but I was able to handle myself professionally. I really could not stand it whenever I would respond to a domestic and some grown man had beat his girlfriend or beat his wife. One of the best captures the dog and I had ever made was a guy that, he beat the wheels off his wife, and she was terrified that he would come back. And it was on a Friday or Saturday night, and all the other officers were kind of scattered about doing other things. And he ran out of the house. And I was like, man, I told my sergeant, I was like, we don't have a lot of people to kind of corner him in, I said, but we're going to give it a try. Sure enough, he was hiding in the creek, and the dog sniffed him out, and he went to jail for 48 hours and it gave her time to get the heck out of Dodge. So stuff like that was very rewarding.
I got to imagine the domestic abuse stuff is hugely rewarding.
It's hard to see. It's hard to see, but when you're able to capture them, and just so the other person can, whether they go back to them or not, which unfortunately most of the times they do, but at least right then and there, you knew you very well potentially saved a life.
Yeah, but unfortunately, again, you're stepping back into the human mindset, and the human brain is weird.
Yes, it really is. If you're not careful, it will easily work against you versus working for you.
You're you seem like a pretty happy guy, Scott.
I am. Overall, I'm pretty dang happy, yes.
Considering, your history and what you've been through and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And I can see that, discovering that for yourself is why you'd want to help other people, first responders and whatnot. So what kind of things can these other people, or really anybody, do to be happier at working in their life? If this is what you're doing that's worked for you.
I think I briefly mentioned it earlier. It's just doing something each and every day to work on yourself. I mean, for the first 9 years of my career, I would go to the gym, and I thought that was just enough, all I needed to do. But mentally, I was in a way dying inside, so it physically started to take a toll on me as well. I'd get sick, I'd have stomach problems. But I would tell people, make time for yourself. I mean, seriously, when you wake up in the morning, don't expose your mind to social media or the mainstream media. Don't even look at your phone, and work out or do some yoga. Sit down in the chair, have some coffee without any distractions. Do these daily habits, and these daily habits will eventually equip you to have the mind and body necessary to encounter all this stress. Life is still going to hit you in the face, and you're still going to have human reactions to trauma, especially in police work. We're still going to have human reactions, but all those daily things can help you cope.
Well, Scott, it's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it a lot. Do you have anything out there for the folks? Just, words of wisdom?
If there happens to be any first responder out there listening, then just work on yourself day in and day out, so you can be healthy mind and body, so you can continue to survive the career without being a negative statistic of the internal threat that unfortunately is out there on us. And it can make you more aware of with the external threats, but also to those who just have not really interacted with the police, or if you have interacted with the police once, I mean, yeah, there's going to be bad ones out there. And unfortunately, some people, there's been some events that we can't take back, but we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to strive to be better. Have those conversations. Dead serious. If like I said, go on a ride along, or if your police department has meetings with the community, attend them, please. And but I would definitely recommend a ride along if anything, and you can get that initial heart rate up when the blue lights come on for the first time. It'll make you think a little bit differently. But other than that, hope everyone's enjoyed listening. And if you are into reading, Mental Health Fight of the Heroes in Blue is the first book I wrote. I've had people who have actually read it who are not in law enforcement and actually helped them as well. I'm all about helping people. I really am.
All right, Scott, you've been a great guest. We've loved being able to talk to you. Where can everyone find you?
Well, guys, it's been an honor. Best place to find me right now to keep up with me, see my content, where I really focus on helping officers pay attention to their well-being and their personal security so that they can be fulfilled and excel in the job. To put it short, be well, feel well, so you can do great. So that's the 10 Code Mindset YouTube channel.
Awesome. Love it.
Awesome. We're going to include a link to that for the listeners, so you guys can check it out without having to go search for it. You'll be able to just click on it here.
Thank you again for listening to Beautiful Bastards podcast. Please take a few minutes to give us a rating on iTunes. It's a major part of what keeps this radioactive wasteland glowing. And it helps keep the lights on so we can keep bringing you new content. Remember, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, our website, anywhere else you stream your content from. If you enjoy the show, you can find all our links at linktree/beautifulbastards. Or you can find our website on beautifulbastardspodcast.com. And now on YouTube. You know the rules when I go. No bitches after 11.
I am the law.